I wanted to speak to you about what's happening in this time in the world, because there are momentous events taking place, momentous events that are fulfilled by through prophecy, and it's a very uneasy and unpleasant time for Christians. And we have a crazy world for Christianity. So I'll give you a rundown of who the people are in Christianity currently at the moment. So we have all the established denominations, right from the Catholics through to, I guess you could call them the Pentecost and everything in between. You have all these different denominations. The bad news is that they're all going to be destroyed spiritually. They will all fall under the authority of what is known as the New World Order. It's basically the satanic beast system of this age, this time. And you could compare it very similar to a time like the times when the Greeks or the Romans were in control in the times of the Old Covenant. You have authority, a power that's in the natural. But this current age, we have more spiritual powers, and they don't work through nations and boundaries. They kind of work through everything at a spiritual level and establish authority in the unseen realm. But this satanic regime of the New World Order, essentially a banker elite that prints all the money in the world and has all the money in the world. They are the guys in charge of this current dispensation, this season, and they have turned against the church. And they have basically infiltrated every single denomination. And we've already seen the signs of the corruption that's coming through doctrines, climate change, LGBT, the Pope doing satanic rituals with pagan stuff. All these things are going to get worse. And these religions, all these denominations will all fall into permanent, I repeat, permanent spiritual bondage. They will never come back out of this bondage and serve the Lord in spirit or in truth. They will serve the satanic New World Order of this age. That's the one side. Then we have the latest move of God. The response to that was the charismatic evangelical movement. So that's the most current outpouring from God, and then people respond and denominations are formed over time. Eventually God's kicked out and the man rises up and takes charge and they do what man wants to do. And then God starts a new revival because man has kicked God out. So we're in that season now with the charismatic movement, and we can see that the charismatic movement is imploding. It's corrupting. They have numerous false doctrines. They have leaders falling all the time. Scandals with girls, scandals with money, scandals with power, scandals with lies. Just like it's ongoing. And this is really a sign of God starting to withdraw and leaving behind what is there that couldn't have been seen in the past. And so we see the end of this latest revival coming to its deserved end, because effectively charismatic evangelical is probably the most corrupt response to an outpouring of God in 2,000 years. So all the evils that we're seeing, it is essentially just God now deciding to withdraw his covering and protection and let it manifest itself. And so what we know is going to be coming soon is going to be another revival. That's generally the cycle. When God has had enough of what Christians are doing, he withdraws. And that's been right from the times of the Old Testament. When there was a bad king, bad stuff happened. In this age, when there's a bad response and Christians do their own thing, well, then God, gets fed up and moves on and starts something new. So this is what's currently happening in the church. And God is busy purging. God is busy purging the church because of this new revival. It's going to be the greatest revival in probably 2,000 years. And so that's what's happening right now. You will find probably a lot of people that have been prepared for a long season, wondering, if God's going to use them or if something's going to birth in their lives or do something. And they find themselves increasingly not compatible with the current churches. Many people are not going to church anymore because they see the corruption. They have the spirit of the Lord inside themselves, and they just feel themselves separating to what the church is becoming. And that is always a sign of a revival. This particular one has been a lot more lengthy in its preparation season, because it is going to be a great revival. It'll be probably the best we've seen for 2,000 years. And so those are the things that are happening in the spiritual realm. So if you're a Christian and you're feeling uncomfortable, you're not liking what the church is, or you're like one of these charismatic evangelical guys who are sitting there waiting for the rapture, you're going to be troubled. But the thing is, what's going to happen is the first thing God's going to do is getting rid of all these fake leaders, and he's going to raise up new people. And the first things that are going to go are going to be false doctrine. So the rapture is a fake doctrine. Just reject it. It's never going to happen. The scriptures are clear. Christ does not return until the church has put all things under his feet, including death. When it says when death has been defeated, Christ will return. So let's cut the crap about the rapture It ain't going to happen. So you can sit there in your little room waiting fearfully that God is going to pull you out before there's any trouble. You're in for the surprise of your life. The other thing that needs to be broken off before this new revival comes is it has to be a split between Christianity and Israel. Israel is a false doctrine. There is nothing in the scriptures, not one scripture, that can validate Israel being part of biblical prophecy. I have no problems if Jews want to get together and form their own little cult in the Middle East and be the supremacists they want to be. Hey, good for you guys. But don't tell Christians that it is biblical, that is prophetic, and that we need to support it. Okay? So that is going to strip away. That is going to strip away from this new revival. And I can tell you why it's going to strip away, because in this next revival, we're going to see a large number of Muslims coming to the faith. So right now we see in the West, we see this rise up, this insurgency rise up of Islam. It's more of an assertive kind of phase. They have these two phases in Islam throughout history. They have the Dawah phase where they're the nice guys, the victims, and they're just nice to everybody else. And they slowly build up and they get concessions from Western governments and free housing and free this and free to build mosques. And then they start to get a bit of authority, and then it changes from Dawah to Jihad. And we've seen that subtle shift happening in Europe. We see the Dawah stage coming in the United States, a bit of Jihadi coming in, just exerting and seeing what kind of response there will be. But this is just a flex in the natural realm, because I think the devil's aware that there is a big Muslim revival coming and a turn to the faith. And so what we have in response to this, we have a couple of factors that are dictating how Christians are seeing things, and I'm going to just lay them out for you. So Islam is effectively it's a Jewish concubine. If you go back to the beginning of Islam, there was a couple of nomadic guys fighting with the Jewish tribes, and this guy, they say is Muhammad, but the name, you could never spell Muhammad or pronounce it for another 200 years. So there is reference to him being an Ishmaelite. So they say the Ishmaelite and the Jews were having all this conflict, and he killed a bunch of tribes, and then eventually was poisoned by a Jewish woman, and he died. And then there was a succession battle between Muhammad or Ishmael's children and a group of guys that had got very close to this guy. And it appears that these were Jewish guys, because the battles up until then were between Jews and these Ishmaelites. And within a couple of leaders thereafter, a new leader rises up, almost certainly a Jewish guy, because he had very strong ties to rabbis. His focus shifts entirely. The doctrine becomes more warlike and aggressive, and he goes off to Jerusalem and attacks the Christians there and overthrows, and allows the Jews, his enemies, to suddenly come in there and set up space there and start taking authority in Jerusalem. And from then onwards, we see throughout history, we see in the gates of Toledo, where in Spain, where the Jews open up the gates to let the Muslims come in and attack and overthrow the nation. Happened in Constantinople. Throughout history, there's events of these two groups suddenly working together. And up until this time, the Jews were continually attacking Christians, enslaving them, getting them killed by the Roman emperors, just doing a whole lot of stuff. And then all that stops. We suddenly see a new force rise up. Islam is now attacking and advancing on Christian land. So I don't think in my mind there's any real doubt of it. I think Islam, especially the Sunni group, but other groups decided to stick with Fatima, the Shia. But the Sunni group, you see all these Arab states, these royalty states in the Middle East, like the Saud family is Jewish. All these royalty states they're Jewish. They're called crypto-Jews. They pretend they're something else, but they're Jews. Erdogan in Turkey is a Jew. The Muslim Brotherhood was started by the Rothschilds through the Suez Canal Company in 1922. So we see all these leaders under the guise of being Muslims actually being crypto-Jews. And their stated goal is to overthrow Christianity. If you come look at what's happening in the West, you will see, especially recently, all the laws that have changed, especially in a country like Australia and in the US, all the laws that used to have a whites policy or Western or Christian immigration policy, they've all been changed. They've all been changed by Jewish lawyers, by Jewish activist groups. Most of the NGOs that are bringing these people into the West are Jewish run, including the Catholic Church, which to me now has been overthrown from within by Jewish Jesuits. It's now essentially a Jewish run denomination. The first thing they did is a couple of years ago is they brought in all the Jewish auditing firms to audit the assets of the Roman Catholic Church. So we see a lot of evidence of these guys coming in, as they normally do, usurping from within and redirecting the policies of whatever it is, whether it's a country, whether it's a government or a company, or it's a religion. And we've seen Islam very dramatically directed directly against Christianity, and the fingerprint behind it is the same people. So that's what's actually happening. We also see that Islam has got a very strong underlying element that people don't know about, much like the West. In the West, we have a large occultic, satanic group. They call themselves Freemasons. It's essentially a satanic group. But Oriental Freemasonry is also a reality which operates in Muslim countries. Also, they have the same power behind the scenes, dictating and shaping actions where the masses of the people in those nations don't understand what's going on or why it's going on. So we see this Freemasonry cult, which is actually a Jewish fabrication. It lines up either Christians or Muslims to be yielded and yoked towards their goals within a state or nation. So we see this force rising up and starting to bring in a mass flood of people into Western Christian countries. And if you look at, I think it was the Confederate General, I can't remember his name offhand, but he gave this blueprint 150 years ago of 3 world wars to overthrow Christianity and introduce a new world order, a satanic new world order essentially, and it would be under the Jewish people. So that is just fact. And what we see lately if you're on social media and YouTube, there's an ex-Satanist, his name is Rion. He talks about 2027 being the year that they've planned to introduce a new world religion, and he said it won't be Christianity. And then the other spectrum, you see like these fake prophets in these Jewish kind of guys like Tobias Singer. They are predicting that we are currently in the times of Ezekiel, the times of their messianic age. Right at the door, their messianic age will come and take charge of the world, and the Jews will rule it. So it's not surprised that the Satanists and the Jewish rabbis are looking at the same events in the same timeline. So that is exactly what is happening at the moment. We see all these converging forces coming against Christianity, coming against Western nations where Christianity is an authority. We see Islam doing what any nation would come in undercover and try and overthrow a nation from within. We see them subverting the laws, two-tier legal systems. We see a lot of women being subjugated and raped. We see a lot of flexing in the culture where they're exerting authority in the streets, even in churches. We see a lot of churches being burned down in all these nations. We see a lot of appeasement of Islam and a lot of laws coming against Christianity, like people preaching in the street, sharing the gospel of truth and love, being arrested. We see in Australia, we see laws changing that you can't go out and minister to people who are bound in various sexual sin. We see a lot of these oppressive things coming out against Christianity, but very strongly in for these other nations. And the whole intent of this season is to overthrow Christianity. The Jews especially believe, if you're a religious Jew, you believe that you have to destroy Christianity before your Messiah can come, your Messianic age. And so that's what they've been doing for 2,000 years, is to try and destroy Christianity. Wherever they've got through in a government and managed to assert authority, like in Russia, 1917, essentially killed as many Christians as they could, outlawed any criticism of Judaism, destroyed all the churches, mass murdered thousands of priests, confiscated all the assets. That is the kind of pattern that you see. And then we are led to believe that's communism, which was in fact funded by the Western bankers, the Jewish bankers, and was implemented and put together, communism put together by rabbis. So we see this pattern taking place where Christianity is under dramatic attack, and we see the different powers, the subordinate powers. We see communism and its woke ideology of breaking down the morality of the West. We see Islam coming in to destroy a direct frontal attack on Christianity. We see a global technological, it's like an empire, but it's based on technology. The invasiveness, the controlling of everything, what you see, what you do. They intend to have a sort of a system where they can vet everything you do and say, and if you're not right, they would penalize you in some way. Much like the Muslims penalize you with the Jesus tax, these new technocrats will penalize you with some sort of social score system, and you will lose your rights. So they're all different entities, but they're all working against the Christian West. And so that's what actually happened. If you wanted to see what we in scripturally where I'm talking about, you should go and look at Daniel chapter 11, 13 to 18. Now this is that third sort of engagement. Like, they spoke of I mentioned the 3 world wars that were due to overthrow Christianity. This is that third engagement of coming up against the West of civilization and trying to destroy it, subjugate it to a satanic order. They call it the New World Order. It's just a satanic order. It's where Satan and his minions rule and Christianity is subjugated. That's the plan of the devil, and he is using all these different forces. And if you want to get a really good look into how this is going to play out, you go to Daniel 11, 13 to 18, and you will see what's happening. It'll show you that there are people even within the church that are supporting this, deluded and deceived like the rest of them, but people within the church, and they're going to rise up and come against the sort of the plan and the purposes of God. And so you have a lot of Christians looking at this and wondering, where is God? Are we going to be raptured out of this trouble? Well, I have to tell you that this is part of God's plan at the moment. God is busy purging out all the dross of Christianity. So you should not be fearful. It is a season. It talks about a season of the Spirit rising up against Christianity. But the Lord says, don't be fearful. It's just for a season. I'm just purging. I'm getting rid of all the stuff that's in the way of me bringing this next revival. And so I want to encourage Christians. The big push on Christianity right now is all these so-called cultural Christians that have risen up. You have all these guys, like, there's a bunch of them. They all, like, they weren't Christians like yesterday, but now they're all Christians, and they're all suddenly in the forefront, marching in the streets, and got, social media channels, and they're Christians, and they are trying to stir up the Christian response, because they need Christians to be in the natural, to be defeated. Once Christians come out of the spiritual place and enter into the natural, they're defeated. So if you're thinking as a Christian you need to become like a Christian nationalist and go and fight on the streets and defeat Islam in their battleground, you are deluded. You're going to lose. You're going to be defeated and destroyed, because that is the devil's terrain in the flesh, in the natural. So you have all these characters trying to stir up Christianity to do that in the natural and to oppose them. What I can tell you now, without a doubt, there is going to be a massive revival coming amongst Muslims. But it's not going to happen until Christians have a mental shift. They need to break away from this false deception in the Middle East called Israel. It is satanic. It's got nothing to do with Christianity or end-time prophecy. Zero, nothing. Every one of the scriptures you'll ultimately see is changed from what Christ did through the Old Testament, fulfilled all the prophets, and they're rechanging it to be applicable to Israel. So all the war, Ezekiel's battle of 38 and 39 of the battle of Gog and Magog, that is actually talking about the battle between Christ and the devil at Calvary Cross. And that hook where he catches and he draws them in. It's like this defenseless Christ. We've got no walls around, no defenses, no weapons. He doesn't want to fight a natural battle. The devil comes in and says, we'll see, this is the Messiah, let's kill him. But they get drawn into, not realizing, by killing Jesus Christ, they actually affect the new covenant, and out comes the victory, and the devil's put to open shame. So that's the whole battle in Ezekiel 38, 39. But what the Zionists do, the satanic Zionists, is they now converted to be about natural Israel. That they have to keep having all these wars and killing everybody around them continually. Because that's the way the copy will do it. They will defeat and subjugate every nation, like they did in Russia, like they did in China, like they did in Africa, like they've done in the Middle East. The Middle East, under this expansion of America and Israel, has obliterated Christianity. There used to be 8 million Christians, there's now a few 100,000, and they're busy killing them now in liberated Syria. The people that everybody said was such a bad guy, where Christians lived for 2,000 years, they are killing Christian minorities right now with the support of Israel and the West. So they have a parallel pattern. They need Christians to be on board to continually have these wars and these fights. That's why they're fighting against Iran at the moment. One of the few countries that's left that has not been subjugated under the fake Muslim Brotherhood or some fake Arab royalty state, or a crypto Jew like Erdogan, or it's one of the few countries, but they need to overthrow that country to effect their big war that they have to have so they get their liberation. So that is their plan. That is what they're busy working towards, to replace Christ with all these scriptures And ultimately what they believe is that Jesus Christ is not the Messiah. They believe that the nation of Israel is collectively the Messiah. You might not have heard that, but it's going to become clearer with time that they are the Messiah to the world. So what their plan is essentially, is to rise up these two forces in the West, Islam and against Christianity, and provoke a whole lot of attacks between the two, initiate fake attacks and counterattacks, and then get the two sides in the West into basically a world civil war. The Jews will all extract themselves out because they will fabricate hate against the Jews, just like they did after when Israel first came into the Palestine area. They started attacking all the Jews living in the Middle East because they didn't want to go there. They would attack them and blame it on the Arabs. So the Jews all left the Middle East and went to Israel. That's well documented. It's proof. They're doing the same thing now. This thing in Gaza, the visible and the genocide of killing all these people and all these babies lined up and all the Israelis on TV laughing and joking and making fun of people who have lost their family. That is designed to stir up hate against the Jews because they need them to come back to the promised land. And so they'll extract all the Jewish people out of our Western nations, and they will provoke and instigate a civil war. They will generate some sort of financial collapse, some sort of food collapse, or something that they've got the power to engineer these things, and they will provoke the civil war and hope that the West will have this internal civil war in all these different Western nations and destroy each other, and they will come out and lord over the world. That is the plan of Satan through his Middle East project. And the plan is to draw Christians into this conflict. That is the plan. You will see it all the time with these social media experts and these people that they want Christianity in that battle because that's the only way they can defeat it. But what I'm telling you now is there is a very different plan that God has got. As I've said to you, there is a big revival. It is coming, without doubt. The only thing is how long and how much suffering must Christianity have before God can initiate the plan. We need to get rid of these false doctrines. We need to start praying and fasting for revival. And like most times, it generally does not birth in the existing church. The church, God is withdrawing from the church because it's corrupt and it's lost contact with God. It'll generally be birthed out of people preaching on the streets or home churches or something totally different to the current model. It is not going to be birthed through your big mega church in the US somewhere. It's just not going to happen. In fact, it might even bypass the US totally because it's totally corrupt. The US is totally corrupt and sold out to supporting Israel, basically a satanic, sort of usurping of Jesus Christ. So I don't even know if they will actually see much of it, but I know there will be many incredibly strong Christians in America that will bypass it and be part of this new revival. I don't think the church as a whole in America could possibly actually see this revival, but there will be people that are pulled out of it. So my point is now, unless Christians extract out of this thing, this deception and this fear of watching Islam rise up, and start to do what God has called us to do, to pray, exercise authority, this is going to become more and more. Christian rights will be usurped continually. Christians will be imprisoned. Christians will be attacked. Christianity will be marginalized. I'm talking from the country where I live in, which is probably more advanced in Australia, to Europe, to the West, to the US and Canada. These things are going to rise up continually until Christianity is beaten into submission. At some point, Christians will have had enough. At some point, and they will start to pray. And they will start to fast. And they will start to stand in the authority of Jesus Christ, who is seated far, far above every other principality, power, rule of the darkness of this age and spiritual wickedness. Far above. It's like a grown man having a fight with a little 2-year-old. You know what? That's what the battle is. But Christians are not. They're not even in the battle. They're siding with the enemy. They're not praying. They're waiting to be raptured. They have false doctrine. There's so many things wrong with Christianity now. So I'm calling upon Christians around the world. Do not wait until the devil starts to exercise real authority and undermine and destroy everything about your Christian life before you start to respond. You need to start getting up an hour early every single day of your life. You need to start fasting 1 day a week of your life for prayer, for revival, and for salvation of Islam. If you do not do that, you are going to bring upon yourself and your family the things that have happened in every other subjugated nation under Islam, from Egypt to wherever else. There's 50 countries that have already fallen through the support, through the networks of these Freemasons, Orientals, the Jews, and now Christian Zionism. They are the enemies of the cross. So I want to encourage Christians. We are going through a time of change. We are going through a purging. We are going through dramatic. The church will never look the same. Never look the same. We are going through these seasons right now. And if you don't start getting serious with God, Get rid of your social media stuff, your routines every day of 1, 2, 3, 4 hours on that screen, and replace that with prayer and crying out to God. You're going to be either falling away or you're going to become under some sort of bondage or persecution. So my call right now is these are trying times, but they are exciting times, because out of this new revival there will come a massive victory for Christianity. For sure in the future these forces will continue to encroach upon Christianity and continue to try to suppress it like it's done with all the denominations which have been usurped. It will come against this new revival, and there will come eventually a massive big spiritual battle. After much defeat by Christianity, you will see this massive spiritual where God comes in and does a once in a 1,000-year victory, where he defeats in an incredible way the forces that come against the church. It's going to be incredibly, humanity will never forget what happens in this time. Not in this immediate time, but it's the season ahead. But right now is we need to start to pray for this revival. It is critical for the well-being of you, your family. Get yourself into groups and start to pray against the strongmen of this world. I'll give you a few ideas who the strongmen are. It's Kabbalism. It is witchcraft. It is Islam. It is Zionism. It is Mammon. There are these demonic strongholds that need to be bound. The Bible says, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. These satanic forces need to be bound continually every single day in the name of Jesus Christ, no other name. And these powers will start to weaken, and the Spirit of God will start to rise up in the world. Because these forces they have no authority to function. They have no power to function. They have no power to come into Christian lands unless the Christians are slack and doing nothing and sitting idly by and on their social media or doing crazy stuff. So these forces are only operating now because Christianity is not operating. So I want to encourage you as a Christian, get yourself organized. Get your prayer life going. Get yourself fasting. Start to connect with other people. Start to educate yourself on how to defeat Islam. There are so many guys who now God is raising up people that have understood that Islam is a totally fake religion. Right from the times of even the name Muhammad is a fake name. It wasn't possible to pronounce for 200 years until after he was supposedly around. Everything about it, the doctrines, it's a combination of paganism and Christianity and Judaism mixed into one little flavor. There is nothing of substance to it. But these spiritual forces cannot stand if Christianity rises up and starts to exercise its authority. So I'm encouraging you as a Christian, don't be discouraged. Don't be fearful. You have all the power and authority in the world to defeat every single principality that is rising up now. But if you don't, you will be subjugated. You'll be in bondage, and many Christians will fall away from their faith.